Hello and welcome to the McDonald's sessions. Today I'm here with Jenny, and I don't know what we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk about your running and your involvement with the Kansas City Running Company team and whatever else comes up. Okay, today I'm here with Jenny, and we are at probably the McDonald's I've done this the most at, so welcome to very popular McDonald's in this series.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
So first let's talk about any athletic things that you did in high school. Were you an athlete in high school, or did you do any activities in high school?
I did. Growing up, I played volleyball and basketball. Mostly volleyball. That was my go-to sport.
Okay.
I played that in college, and I still to this day play in a lot of different leagues across the city. So.
Where did you go to high school at?
I grew up in Minnesota.
Okay.
So that brings out the accent when people are like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "Minnesota," and they're like, "Oh, I hear it there." So my vowels are very long, and that's because I grew up in Minnesota.
I didn't grow up in Minnesota, but I probably have a little bit of a Minnesota accent because I talk to people from Minnesota all day long. So that's interesting. Where did you go to college at?
I first went to a community college, so that's where I played volleyball for my 2 years, and then I transferred to Minnesota State University, Moorhead,
Okay.
and finished my bachelor's degree there, but I didn't play volleyball there, I just played at the community college.
So I noticed when you talked about your athletic ability that you didn't say you ran track
Nope.
or cross country.
Nope.
When you were in basketball, was running your favorite part of practice?
No, I actually really disliked running and would have never ever pictured myself as a runner growing up. It was like the punishment for our sport.
Yes, that is definitely true. It's definitely, especially in basketball, that's like you miss a free throw, the whole team has to run or something like that.
Yes.
So, okay, so you went to college for volleyball, and then did you run any during then? Did you?
No, I got fat and lazy.
Okay.
Very fat and lazy during college and beyond. And I had no real intentions of ever getting super active again until I did.
So that's definitely the next thing. So what made you, like the first day, like what got you, not even into running, what made you run the first time?
So how this all started for me was I work at a college, and they were putting together a fundraiser for scholarships. And the fundraiser was if you could raise a certain amount of money, we would run a marathon as part of the fundraising piece of it, but it was in Dublin, Ireland.
Okay.
So really what brought me to that point was I could go to Ireland.
Yeah.
And someone else is planning the trip, and I don't really have to do anything, but oh yeah, I am
Except for
supposed to do a marathon. So I went to the informational meeting about it, and again, not active at that point at all. But I went to the meeting about it, and they talked about how much money you had to raise and what this was going to look like. And then they did say that this marathon was a walker-friendly marathon. And I thought, I could probably work up to walking that. I could do that. So then they mentioned that if you did it with a partner, you wouldn't have to raise as much money each. You'd get a smaller pot when you combine them. So then I called my mom, who lives in Minnesota still, and she at that point in time was pretty active, and every summer she would walk from the small town they live in to the neighboring small town, which was about 14 or 15 miles.
Okay.
And that was like her big thing for the summer. She'd work up to that, and then she'd walk to the next town. So she was already walking pretty long distances, so I knew she could walk this marathon, and so if she can do it, I can do it. Mm-hmm. So I talked her somehow into it. Hi, Mom. And we went to Ireland, raised all the money we needed to, went to Ireland and did this race. But during the training pieces of it, it was nice because we trained as a group, kind of. Mom was in Minnesota, so she did her training on her own, but we would check in each week with each other and how's your miles and how's things going. And we had trainers that were kind of creating the plan for us because almost everyone on this trip were very novice runners.
Yeah.
And so when we finally got into the training and we were doing 10, 12 miles and I was walking that, I got to the point where I thought, oh my God, this is going to take forever if I just walk this thing. So I slowly started throwing just a little bit of running into each of my training sessions. So I would like run a 1/10 of a mile and walk like a half a mile.
Did you tell your mom that you were doing this too, so she would kind of
I
get
did.
the same idea?
I did, because we had talked every week about the training and whatnot, and we both said this is going to take forever. So we both kind of started throwing those short bursts of running in there, which was very difficult. And at the time, a 1/10 of a mile running was like terrible.
Yeah.
But we both bought our very first Garmin, which was like the size of like, I don't know, a small cell phone now that sat on your wrist and
I
took
feel like
batteries.
mine's pretty big.
It took batteries. Like
Oh,
you had
man.
to put physical batteries in it. But we both bought that and started doing the training with that and just throwing in the running. And before we knew it, we could run, not fast, but it was faster than walking. And that's kind of how the whole running piece started for me.
While you were doing that, did you run any 5Ks or anything? I mean, because you're already kind of doing it, and it's so much easier when you're in a training plan like that to throw a race in there. It's such a different environment.
Right. So because we were all pretty novice, the trainers that were doing this program with us did enter us all into a 5K so that we could kind of get the feel of what a race was.
Yeah.
And it was a smaller 5K around Lake Wacomas, which if you've ever run around Lake Wacomas, it's very hilly and interesting. And it was fun, but it was like, wow, this is really kind of what we're getting into. And then probably about a month or so before we went to Ireland, they entered us in again to the Kansas City marathon weekend, but we did it relays. So all of us did the relay portion, so we got to run a little longer distance and a little bigger event again to kind of get the feel for this is what you're in for when you go over to Dublin.
Yeah.
So we did a few races in that training plan just to kind of get the feel for what we were getting into.
So when you actually did the marathon, how did it go?
It went all right. It was definitely still a challenge for me. It took longer than I probably wanted it to, but I finished in it was over 6 hours, so maybe 6:15 or something like that. Mm-hmm. But we got it done.
Yeah.
And Mom got it done. Everybody in our group that was training for the marathon got that marathon done. So it was pretty cool for all of us because, again, we were very novice to this.
Yeah.
But then you get done and you're like, wow, I did this, I accomplished this. And you spend all that time training because we trained for at least 6 months. And then you're like, now what?
Yeah.
Like, do I just give all that up and feel like I wasted that time, or do I keep going? And so I decided to kind of keep going with it, but focus more on the half marathons because they weren't as time consuming. Training for a full marathon can really be very time consuming.
Yeah.
So that's how I started, and now I've just kept going because it's like, do you give up all that you built up, that stamina and all that, and just go back to nothing, go back to sitting on my butt, or do I just keep going? And actually, when we came back, my mom did another marathon. I think it was within 6 months or so of our one in Dublin, because her thing was she didn't want to be a one and done.
Yeah.
So she actually trained and did another full marathon up in Fargo, North Dakota, and finished that. And then when she did that, I kind of then was like, well, I don't want to be one and done either. So then I trained for the following year and then did the Fargo full marathon as well.
And there's a saying, I think I said it to Sydney the second time she did a 50K, because it's the first time you did a 50K and then the second time you are a 50K. So that's like the same thing. So the first time you did a marathon, the second time you are a marathoner. So
I like that.
That's kind of always good, because, and plus, I mean, once you do it once, you know that you can do it again. It may suck, it may hurt, it might take forever, but you know you can do it again. So it's a different, the second time was a different experience. At least I found the second time for any distance like that is always different.
Yes, it was definitely a different experience. I was in much better shape. I think I ran the whole first half of it nonstop, which at that time was a pretty big feat for me.
Yeah.
And I ran it with a friend, and finally when I kind of had to start running after about the halfway point, she kind of went ahead of me. So she was at the finish line waiting for me to get done, and she said the look of anger on my face when I finished. And the first thing out of my mouth was, I am never doing that again. But I finished almost a half hour faster than the previous one I did. So I took a lot of time off and definitely had improved my physicality and endurance in between that training. So
do you think the first one kind of got you addicted, or did it take you longer than that till you were like, I want to keep doing this?
I think it took me longer than that, because really the first one just, while it was a great experience and it was very unique because it was in Dublin, and so we had travel involved with it and we got to see and do things. Part of it also was though that I just didn't want to give up all that work I put into it.
Yeah.
But then once I started doing more races and I was traveling a little bit to hit some different races, and I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. And as I start talking to people doing these other races, like I went to like Indiana and Kentucky and Tennessee and things like that, and they were all like, oh, well, have you tried this race in this state, and have you done this in this state? And as I started talking to more runners while you're out there on the course, you figure out that people do this and travel all the time for it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how my goal was created with running. So what I'm working on right now is running a half marathon in every state.
Okay.
So it wasn't initially the goal, but as I started going out there and doing it and talking to other people, and they're like, you need to try this one in this state and try this one in this state, and it was like, wow, that kind of sounds fun.
I feel like that's fun, except for I already haven't even been to all 50 states, even close. So I feel like that would make it really hard. So how many have you done so far?
I have done 36 states so far.
Oh, wow. You're getting pretty close.
Getting pretty close.
So have you done Hawaii?
I haven't done Hawaii.
Alaska?
We were planning Hawaii, and then COVID hit.
Oh,
That was going to be the year of 2021, and then all the travel bans came out, and we just stopped planning that. So, but I did Alaska last year.
okay. So I feel like those two are the absolute hardest ones.
Yes, as far as planning
Yeah.
and cost,
Yeah.
they're much more expensive travel races. But we did the Alaska one. My friend went with me up for the race, and then my mom and dad met me up there, and my aunt and uncle. And so I went up early, ran the race, and then they came up the day after the race, and then we took a cruise for
nice.
the week down the coast of Alaska. So we really did make like a big trip out of that one.
So, excuse me, you run all these half marathons. Like, which one would you say is your favorite so far?
People ask me that a lot, and that's kind of a hard question because there's different things I like about different ones.
Yeah.
Like when you talk about like the beauty of a race, the one I did in northern Arizona was beautiful because there was all the red rock around you and the scenery, and it was gorgeous. So that one always kind of jumps into the back of my mind because it was just so beautiful.
Yeah.
But then I think of the Fargo Marathon because I did a full marathon there, and I've done the half there several times. I've done races where my brother's done it with me, and my mom's done it with me, and my aunt and uncle have come and done the 5K, and we just having that kind of family connection at that one has always been fun. Plus, I don't know if you've done Fargo or not.
I keep looking at it, and it seems like it's pretty soon, right?
It's usually in May. Yeah. It's very flat. So if you're looking for a fast time, Fargo's a good race. But it's got such good crowd support. Like the whole community gets behind it, and people are out on the streets cheering, and there's bands about almost every mile. Mm-hmm. And it's such a neat experience. Out of all the ones I've done, I think that's probably the best crowd support I've ever seen.
Is that one in the Fargo Dome?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it has in the past. It's been a couple of years since I've done it, but
I think it still does. 'Cause
okay.
I definitely follow it, and I think about it all the time. Because I've never been to North Dakota before, so or South Dakota, so I need to
you need to get those.
I need to get out more.
Yeah. Well, and that's the one thing about my goal too, is it forces me to go to these places I've never been before too. I probably would have never gone to Alabama if I didn't plan a race there or those kinds of things.
So which race surprised you? Like, which one did you think, this might not be that great, and then you got there and it was way better than you expected? Either scenery or just the race itself.
I would say that West Virginia really surprised me because it was very beautiful. And when I kind of thought West Virginia, I was like, oh, what's in West Virginia? But when we got there, it was so lush and just trees everywhere and lots of rolling hills. And the race was challenging because it was full of rolling hills, very humid. So much humidity that there was mist in the air, just constant that day. But it was just kind of I didn't expect it to be so pretty.
Yeah.
So it was a cool one.
Okay. So do you have any states that you're checking off this year?
Yes. So I just did Oregon in March. So I did a race in Portland there. And then I'm going to Montana in June, and then I'm hoping to do Michigan in October.
I'm surprised Michigan wasn't one of the first ones you did since you were in Minnesota.
Yeah, I've tried to kind of space them out so that I get at least a kind of a farther travel race where it's going to maybe be a little more expensive with a flight and that kind of stuff, and then something closer that I can maybe drive to.
Yeah.
So I've tried to like space them out a little bit so that I don't have all at the end all these flights that I got to do. But I'm kind of getting to that point because I only have 13 states left.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of getting to that point where we're going to be spending a lot of money on flights. But
So how do you find the races? Do you use a website or just find people you talk to, or how do you actually decide which one in each state?
it's a little of both. It's definitely people I meet on the races. And the kind of the feedback that I get from them, because there's so many people that have this goal. I'm also a member of the Half Fanatics, so that's a good group to kind of run things by, like what's your favorite race in this state and why. And but sometimes it just depends on the time of year. Like I have this gap in November that I can do a race, so let me go out and see in the states I haven't done which ones might be open. And there's websites that I go to pretty regularly to check things, but it's kind of a combination of all. It's things I've heard about, it's things that just meet the time frame that I need, and the state that I still need. So
it sounds like half is kind of what you're doing all the time.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of stay trained for that? Like, do you just run like the same kind of training plan all the time, or like how does that work?
it's a great question. I think with anything, especially racing, there's an ebb and a flow. And sometimes you're really focused and the training is spot on and you're doing everything you need to do physically, mentally, nutritionally. And then there's other times where you're like, meh, I've done this so many times, I'll be fine.
Does that ever like bite you? Because
yeah.
I've done that before. I feel like I didn't really respect the distance that I should have. Like even just going to a race, I was just not really mentally ready for it. Like, has that happened to you before?
Oh yeah. Yes, there's definitely times. So I try to at least 3 months out really sit down and create a training schedule with my long runs on the weekends and then maybe 2 to 3 shorter runs during the week. But it's life, it gets so busy. So you try to stick to it, but I am definitely not as religious with my training as I should be.
So I don't know if you've run, I mean, there's a lot of half marathons just in Kansas City, but do you have a favorite one in town?
Yeah, I would probably say the Kansas City Marathon, just because it is kind of the hometown race. But you're right, I've done a lot in the area. Garmin, Olathe, I've done before. Rock the Parkway, of course, is always a good one. I've done that several times in the past. I did Liberty Hospital this year for the first time, and I am never doing that one again. I'd like the 5K. The 5K is fine.
I've said that before, and I've done it like 3 times now.
That one I knew it was going to be hilly, but I wasn't ready for, and I had done my other half 2 weeks prior to that.
Yeah.
So I think my body hadn't fully recovered yet, and it was pretty challenging. But
Have you done Running with the Cows, or are you doing Running with the Cows next 2 weeks from now?
I am not doing it this year, but I have done it in the past as well. Yeah, and I've also done the 5K for that one too. So that's always a kind of a fun one to do.
I just wanna have fun, clap my hands, turn around now and dance, dance, dance. I just wanna have fun, clap my hands, turn around now and dance, dance.
Okay, to change my battery, so we're back. So you have done all these half marathons. What is your kind of reason for this? Do you have like something behind it, or like what pushes you to keep going?
It's a great question. I think part of it is I am a very competitive person. I've always been a competitive person, and this allows me to still have some kind of competitive edge with myself. I'm never really competing against anyone else because I know I can't, but it pushes me physically, mentally, beyond just the everyday stuff that you deal with. And I like that about it.
I've tried to tell my kids that they both play basketball and volleyball and all that stuff. Like, you don't understand that the feeling that you have now, like in sports, is hard to get again.
It is.
So I mean, that's part of the reason I run too, is just because, I mean, it's not the same. Like, it's just not the same, but it's close to the same. You still get that accomplishment feeling, and that you did something. And I don't know, it's similar, but it's really hard to get that back once you. I mean, I could probably still play basketball if I wanted to, but I feel like I'd get hurt really fast. So
yes, yeah. As you get older, there's just not as many opportunities to have that competitive vibe And I still play volleyball, like I said, so I get that little bit of that there. But this is more different because it's more of a competition with yourself and your mind, and what's happening with you versus I'm going to beat that team.
Yeah, because it's really easy when you're saying life happens and stuff. It's really easy to just start skipping runs, or today it's like really windy outside. I did not want to go run, but I still got out and did it. So it's really, I think running, and as you get older, it's really way more competitive with yourself than anyone else. And even in a race, sometimes you just like have to really push yourself.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, like when you are in a race, let's say you're on mile 11 of a half marathon and it's bad weather, whatever it is, like do you have a mantra or any kind of sayings, or like how do you push yourself forward?
I've been known to say just keep swimming.
Okay.
Just keep going, and if there's hills, it's like I just got to get up that hill, and then I get to go down that hill.
Yeah.
It's pushing yourself. I do a lot of what I call leapfrogging towards an end of a race, where I'll pick a spot. There's a light pole. I'm going to run to that light pole, and then I'll walk to the next light pole.
Yeah.
And then I'll run to that light pole, and I'll walk to the next place until I kind of get back some energy and can get that running steady back in. But I do a lot of leapfrogging, and I mean, it's just mental. You just got to keep pushing. It is weird because there are times where, like, you'll be in a race and you'll feel like I can't run anymore, and then as soon as you get done, you're like, feel like that you had a lot left, and it's all in your head that you are so tired. I mean, there's times where I've felt like I couldn't even walk anymore in a race, and then I got done. I had to walk to my car really far, and I didn't have any practice. It's really weird how that works. Yeah, it is. So, let's talk about I don't know what you are, team captain? Team captain. Like, how did that come about? So you're the team captain of the Kansas City Running Company team. So how did you become that? Well, I think it was like 2018. I was looking for some kind of part-time gig to just make a little bit of extra money. But I wanted to do something that was very flexible because I have a regular full-time job Monday through Friday. So I needed something on the weekends, but I also wanted to do something that I was interested in and had fun with. Well, I already was running a lot of races and knew Brad from KC Running Company. So I just happened to reach out to him and say, hey, do you have any need for a part-time person to work a race or help with whatever, expos or those kinds of things? And he was like, let's try this out. So I think it was maybe January that year that I reached out to him, and they were doing an expo at the Sweetheart Run. That was kind of their first time they'd ever done that. And he's like, just come to the expo and try it and see what you think. And I liked it. And I just kind of have stuck around. And they weren't, I don't think, quite sure what to do with me, which most people aren't at first. So it took a little bit, but then Joanne, who used to work for KC Running Company, said, I think you'd be really good at this team, and helping me run the team, organize the team, and it could take something off of their plate. So that's kind of how I got involved with it, and I have been there almost, 2018, end of 2018 is when I started helping Joanne with that, so 2019 was my first team to myself. So really with that, it's, people that don't run ask me, well, what do you do with that? What does that mean? And I said, I'm a cheerleader. I am the person out there, cheering you guys on, getting you some extra swag or goodies when we can, and just kind of help be a center point to bring other team members together, because they're always gathered around our tent or the table that I'm at that day, and they check in and say hi to each other, and they've gotten to know each other, and it's like a little family that you're just a part of, and it's pretty cool. Yeah. So is that your favorite part of it, is just seeing all the people, or seeing people meet, or which part I guess is your favorite? Honestly, I would say it is, because when I first started doing it, COVID happened pretty quickly. So everyone was kind of on their own, and I was trying to pick out faces and names just so I could try to remember them. But something magical happened during the COVID time frame and after the COVID time frame, where these team members were just seeking each other out, I think, to find that camaraderie and the other people to join in with. And it doesn't matter if you're a super fast runner or the back of the packer, everyone talks to everyone cheers for everyone and supports everyone, and it just blew my mind when I saw this start to happen, the people that were talking to each other. And for me, I've been in the running community for a while now, but I've always kind of kept to myself because I'm not a fast runner, and I was like, oh, they don't really want to talk to me. But once you put these people together and they have this thing in common, they really just start to vibe, and it doesn't matter how fast you are or how slow you are or if you're a walker or whatever. They're all there to support each other, and it's pretty magical to watch.
I mean, it probably happens in other hobbies or whatever running is, but it's so cool because everyone just kind of leaves. I mean, we all have differences, like fast, whatever, all different kinds of things.
Right.
But when you start running, you all have that same goal. You pretty much, I mean, I don't know if fast people go through like trying to like not be the last person, but they all have the same goal, and we've all been through the same things. Like we've all been in a race, and it all of a sudden started pouring or whatever. So we all kind of have the same singular focus.
Yeah.
And it all just brings everyone together, and I think it's just really one of the neat things about running.
Absolutely.
For sure. So you get to see it
Absolutely.
from a different perspective. Like, have any interesting things that have happened while you were, I don't know if cheerleading is the right word, but whatever you were doing.
I was working the race
Yeah,
that
have
day.
you seen anything interesting at a race that was like really stuck out to you?
I have. The way that, again, the team members just kind of jump in for each other. Like when a wheel fell off of Melinda's stroller when she pushes the little one, and they jumped in to help get the stroller out of the way and let's carry the baby the rest of the race. Those kinds of things are just magical to see, because most people would have been like, well, I guess I'm done, I'm going back to the start line, and but she just kept going, and team members were there to help her with that situation. So but it's just people helping people and being there for people that has been the most fun for me to watch.
Yeah. So do you like doing that more, or do you like running? Like, let's just say running with the cows, which is, I don't know what my next race is. Maybe it's Heritage Park, whatever it is.
Right.
Would you rather run it, or would you rather be like the team, whatever you are?
I think there's a little bit of both. There's races that I get really excited to work, like Rock the Parkway is always fun for me because it is a longer distance, and to watch the people coming in at all different speeds, and they're waving as they go by, and those kinds of things. So that's always fun to be able to be there to be cheering them on and encouraging them. But then there's times where I just want to run.
Yeah.
So there's races that I'll like Plaza 10K. I think pretty much the whole time that I've done the team thing, I've always said I'm not having a table. I want to run the Plaza 10K. And so there are definitely places and times where I just say I just need to run for me as well. So
Yeah, I think the Plaza 10K, I ask people a lot of times what their favorite race is, and that's probably my favorite race too.
Yeah.
And I can't even really put my finger on it. I think it's because it's just a 10K. It's really big. It's through the plaza, and there's just something special about it. That's, even though it's part of the 30K series, so you're running 10Ks, and the other two are just always different.
Right.
The Plaza 10K is just its own.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite races as well. But
Yeah.
You're right. There's not one specific thing that makes it that way. It's one of my favorite races.
Yeah, because I mean, like the Kansas City Marathon runs a big section of that now, and it's special too, but it's just not the same. Maybe it's so much bigger that it's like different, but
Yeah.
the Plaza 10K is definitely it's probably my favorite. So
Yeah.
looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about that I didn't ask you about, or anything that you would like to say, or tell the team?
Tell the team or the viewers out there. One of the things that I get asked a lot, again, because I'm not like a strong runner. I have been in the past, believe it or not. Like I used to be. My PR for a half marathon is a 2:16. So to me, I think that's pretty legit.
Yeah.
But like everything kind of ebbs and flows, and COVID put a lot of weight on my body that I'm still trying to get rid of. But I think people, when they ask me when they're not runners, they're like, and I say, why don't you come do this 5K? This is a fun 5K, and you get this kind of medal, or just try to talk to them about it. And they're like, I can't run a 5K. And I'm like, I didn't say you had to run it. Just come do the 5K.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of misconception for people that aren't runners, and I was the same way, that if you're entering a race, that you're running, and it's not the way it goes. You can walk, you can waddle. I don't care. Just get out there and be active and do it. That's part of the fun of it and the community of it is you get to see all these different peoples and ages and shapes and sizes and backgrounds, but we're all still out there doing that one Plaza 10K or Battle of the Bean or whatever it is that we're doing that day. So
how many marathons have you run?
2 marathons.
So the same, I've asked this every time, like, would you ever consider running like a 50K? It's only a few miles more. You can run and walk it as well. And the ones around here are super flat.
Super flat, but they're usually on those gravelly, which I don't love. Because the bigger rocks, they challenge me a little bit.
And you could talk to, I think Rex wears gaiters.
Okay.
So rocks don't get in the shoes.
Okay.
And I have them too, but I can't ever figure out how to put them on. But that could help you. I don't know. The one in Osawatomie is not. Did you run the John Brown? Or were you down there?
I was down there.
It's not quite as rocky as Ottawa is.
Okay.
But it's fun. But anyway, I ask everyone to try to go whatever past their furthest distance, except for Rex. And I think he's thinking of running some 200-mile race now.
Oh, jeepers. Rex is unbelievable. It definitely would be something I would consider if I was in a better, healthier place. I equated, and I don't have any children of my own, so I'm probably making this up, but I equate this to childbirth. You have a child, and the pain is terrible, but once you get that child, you're like, yay, look at this child. And the marathon's kind of the same thing for me. Like, the pain of it is terrible at the time, but you get done, and you're like, I just did a marathon.
Yeah.
And then you forget about it, and then you sign up for another one.
That's the good thing about doing these. I've said this a lot, too, is I don't even remember how bad it was until after, and I'm looking at the video, I don't even remember if I'm struggling. I don't even remember it really until I see what I filmed. I mean, yesterday I did the video an hour after I was done, and I'd already forgotten kind of things that had happened, and someone ran by me and said hi and scared me, and I wasn't sure who it was, and I had kind of forgotten that happened. So it's kind of good that you can forget that stuff. But when I'll go think about signing up for a race and I'll go watch my video again, I'm like, oh, maybe I should do that. Like the Heartland 50, which Sydney and Rex are doing Saturday, it's a really tough race and it sounds like really fun, but I do remember how hard that was and how bad I felt after. So.
Yeah, and sometimes you have such a good experience too that you don't want to do it again because you don't want to ruin that experience. Yeah. That's kind of how it was for me. I had the opportunity to do Hood to Coast one year, which is a 200-mile relay race from the Mount Hood in Oregon out to the coast of Oregon. And you have 12 team members and you run steady in a relay until you're done. Mm-hmm. And the people that asked me to run were, again, legit runners, and I was like, are you sure you want me on your team? But they were confident that they could make up the time because I was a little slower, and still at that time not as slow as I am now. But I'm always scared about not getting enough sleep and not feeling good to run, and I had such an awesome experience with that. Started the race at 1 o'clock that day, and I was the first runner. I ran down the mountain, and then the next time I ran was at midnight that night. And then I ran at 9 o'clock the next morning. And so you were constantly going and picking people up and dropping the van off and getting the next group. And we got invited back to do it again because our time was consistent with what it needed to be. And they asked me, do you want to come back? And I said, no. I said, honestly, I had such a good experience and I had so much fun. And it was like, I didn't get sick. Everything worked out perfectly. I said, I don't want to ruin that memory. Yeah. Because then I have high expectations for the next one.
Yeah, that's probably smart.
So, yeah. So sometimes you don't want to do it just because you're like, wow, that was just a great experience.
And since you don't have any memories of a 50K, you might have this same great experience. There's plenty of people out there that haven't done it as well that you could probably hook up with. I mean, the good thing, especially, I don't know, Ottawa and Osawatomie are like the two best. If you've done the Ottawa, what's it, Loggerhead? Mm-hmm. Well, it's really nice because you do have like really nice places where people can help you, like aid stations. They can really get there really easy. So it's much easier. And you can do it in the Osawatomie one too, but Ottawa's like even easier. So there's a lot of help that you can get. But it's fun. And it is something when you accomplish that you really feel like, you know,
I'm
there's
sure.
nothing.
I'm sure.
I mean, I don't know if there's anything past an ultra marathon runner, but I don't think there is.
Yeah, there is. There's Rex.
I don't know. I think he's still, if he ran like a 300-mile race, he's still ultra marathon. So
Yeah, that's true.
they'll probably make up something someday that will entice us all to do it, but I hope not.
Yes. I mean, again, something I would consider, but I need to be in a better physical shape.
You know, maybe. You can always do it. I mean, you just have to there's always, always a better time. You can always feel better, but sometimes you just kind of have to just go for it. So.
Yeah. Maybe after I hit my 50 states.
There you go. Maybe that'll
Something
be
to
your
work towards. My
50,
next goal.
50 states into a 50K.
There you go. Maybe. I'm not saying yes.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about? I think we covered your high school and college, how you got into running in Ireland, your 50 state half marathon goal, and then kind of your role as a team member.
Yeah.
Is there anything I missed?
I think we're good.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming to McDonald's. Not everyone, I don't know if it's the last time you've been to McDonald's. There's some people that...
Oh, I like McDonald's.
Okay. There's some people that haven't been here for decades. I would expect it to be look like what it used to back then, and it's a lot different now.
It is a lot different. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad that we got to talk. So thank you all for watching, and I will talk to you next time.